You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to Haunted Histories with your host Penny G. Morgan, right here on Parasearch Radio.
And a very good evening to everyone tuning in to listen to this week's Haunted Histories on Parasearch Radio. I'm the hostess, or the mostess, also known as Penny to most people, and I will be accompanying you on this flight to and from Borley Rectory this evening. Well, I hope you're looking forward to it. I'm going to start the interview very, very shortly because I was chatting to Paul Stevenson this week from Haunted magazine, and yeah, to say that we talked the hell out of history, to be quite honest, and all things spooky, and could still have probably gone on for another 3 hours. That is how long we spoke for. We spoke for just under 3 hours, and if he appears in the chat room, he will be able to attest to that. So, good evening, Kerry. How are you? So, anyway, firstly, big congratulations to Becky Lyons, who won the competition to have a medium reading with our own very lovely Claire Hinks. Well done to you, Becky. See, if you're in it, you might win it. Wait and see what we've got coming up for you next, competition-wise. Just so that you don't incur the wrath of any of the presenters on Parasearch, can you all let me know if you've been over to the new YouTube channel? Have you liked it? Subscribe to it? All that malarkey? All the shows are going to be on there for you now going forwards. Still got the old one that you can access them on, but that new one is all super duper, and it's going to have loads of special stuff on it. You're going to have videos with the presenters when we're visiting places and doing stuff, paranormal stuff, obviously, not just stuff. But you'll get a chance to see actually what we look like. It's not necessarily a good thing because I've got a face for radio. Hi, Kaz. Anyway, I think, without much further adu, I think we really need to... Hi, Paul. It is the power of magic and the paranormal. It is. You can multitask. I'm impressed. And I just wanted to say, Paul, be able to confirm that him and I did talk for nearly 3 hours on both Borley and history in general, and we didn't even scratch the surface of our sort of common interest. So I think he'll be back. But we have to sort of put out the whole morning in our diaries to talk. Anyway, who wants to hear about the conversation that Paul and I had about Borley Rectory? Hands up if you want to hear it. Yeah? Here we go. Haunted Histories. We're actually joined by the editor-in-chief of Haunted magazine, Mr. Paul Stevenson. Hi, Paul. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you. Pleasure to have you on. Although we did struggle to find somewhere to talk about that Lee Roberts hadn't already monopolised, seeing as you're from the same part of the world as him. But we found somewhere, which ironically is in my neck of the woods.
Really weird. That's spooky.
It's good, isn't it? It's actually in my neck of the woods that we can talk about. What is it we're going to be talking about tonight, Paul?
It's about Borley Rectory.
Borley Rectory.
Yeah, and Harry Price. It's one of the reasons. Well, it's the reason why when people ask me what first got you started in paranormal, it was this. This was it. This was the story, basically.
Okay.
So it's been. I think I was 9 or 10, and I first got this book, Osborne Guide to the Paranormal. It came out in 1979. I've still got it, actually. It came out in 1979, and it was basically, it was split into 3 sections, one on ghosts, one on monsters, and one on UFOs. And you could buy the book separate, but I got it as a compendium. I think it was either I bought it with pocket money or something like that. And in it, there was a section on Borley Rectory and Harry Price. And as a 10-year-old, it was a kid's book, but it was written for kids, and it explained in kid style about Borley and Harry Price. And since then, I've always been fascinated with the paranormal since then. So that's the reason why, to be fair.
Okay. So, if for anyone who, I mean, most people probably have heard of Borley Rectory, although when I speak to people who are outside of the UK, they don't always realise, they think it's London or up north or whatever. Well, it isn't. It's actually on the Suffolk-Essex borders, hence it's in my neck of the woods because I'm in Essex. It's very near a place called Sudbury, which I believe was actually where Harry Price stayed when he was investigating Borley.
I think so.
And there's an awful lot of sort of, we were talking about myths and legends and everything, but there's an awful lot of sort of, it kind of created its own story after a while. It's kind of been sort of expanding. Yeah, I mean, these
days, every town has got the most haunted pub in England, most haunted house. But this was the original most haunted house in England back in the day, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. You know, it was something that, I mean, we all know I'm sure most of us know Harry Price. You know, he sort of like it gained fame basically for being the most haunted house in England because of what happened before he turned up, what happened whilst he was there, and then what happened after. So it's just fascinating to me.
Yeah. Well, the rectory itself was built in 1863 by the Reverend Henry Bull, because he had quite a large family and they'd outgrown the other place that they were living whilst he was, if you like, running the church there.
Did he have 14 children or something like that?
Something that I pity his poor wife for having given birth to that many, Something ridiculous like that, yes. Yeah, obviously he didn't have televisions.
No,
back in those days.
No Facebook Lives, no.
No, nothing like that, unfortunately. And I bet she wished they had. I wouldn't want to have seen the state of her body after giving birth to 14 children, if not more. Because let's face it, mortality rates back then, she probably was pregnant with more than that. Shudder at the 2 was bad enough. Anyway, so it was built back in 1863 by the Reverend Henry Bull. And a lot of people commented on it that even though it was a sort of, in effect, a new build house, it had constant chills in it. But the weird thing was that it was always silent. There was no creaking of floorboards. There was no noises inside it. The only thing that people used to comment was noisy was the water pump, because there was no mains water. You had to get it from the pump.
All right.
Out in the courtyard. A plumber apparently did come and look at the pump and ruled out there was anything wrong with it, but that was the only thing that used to make quite strange, groany sort of, almost sort of, it wasn't supernatural, but supernatural type noises. Now, there's some of the reading up I've done, I don't know if you know much about Henry Bull, but some of the reading up I've done has painted him as being quite an abusive figure, not a very nice man. In fact, I even read one report that said supposedly he used to chase his parishioners with a whip if they didn't come into church. I find that hard to believe. I think that was just, again, like I said, a story taken on a life of its own, and you know, them trying to find justification for why what did happen at the place happened. But it was actually 2 of his daughters who had one of the first real sort of paranormal experiences once this building had gone up. And apparently they were out in the garden with their nursemaid, and they saw 2 of their friends walking across the field towards them with a lady in white walking behind them, and they all saw it. But when they asked their friends who this lady was, they were like, "What lady? We were on our own." And that was one of the first events that they apparently recorded and gave, that was given.
Yeah, I think there's also, I don't know how far you've gone back with the history, but I think on the site of Borley there used to be a monastery, or around it, I think. And I don't know whether it's fact or fiction or rumours or conjecture or whatever, but there was a monk who had an affair with a nun, and the nun was bricked up in a wall. The monk was executed, and the nun was buried or bricked up in a wall. I don't know if you've heard that at all, or...
No, I had heard that one, but that's not the nun story. I seem to be finding most of the evidence to sort of... that was one of the original stories I heard when years ago when I first started reading up on it. And it wouldn't surprise me if that part of Suffolk, Essex did have a small kind of monastery or convent based there, because, there were quite a lot in Essex, but... I couldn't find any. No,
I think it's 600-700 years ago, so it would be hard to trace. To be fair, it's one of these, like we talked about in the past, like urban legend or myth. That kind of.
I have a feeling it is more of an urban legend because even when you're researching history, I don't know if you find this, but you tend to find things to do in monasteries. The history is quite well kept, even like 1,000 years ago, because they were the only ones who were literate. The monks were literate because they had to be able to read the Bible. Yes. So there is normally records of those kind of things, but there is talk of there is a nun connected that I found
there is
more information that validates it. But anyway, so the girls are meant to have seen this woman in white. Things like the servants' bells would just ring for no reason and not stop, so much so that Henry actually had them disconnected for a while because he got so fed up with it. There was a window that they saw a nun keep peering in, and whenever he ran outside to see who it was, there was no one there. So much so that he got so fed up with that, he ordered the window to be bricked up so that she couldn't peer in it. Things like that are quite interesting stories, and there definitely was, from the photos, there was a window that looks like it had been bricked up.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the book that I first read as a kid, obviously it didn't expand too much on what we're talking about now because it was a kid's book. Yeah. But it did mention the nun, and it mentioned the reverend and everything, and it's kind of fascinating to. And this is 80, 90 years ago, and it's just fascinating from as a kid reading it. To obviously. Kids now are more informed about things, but there's no internet, no Facebook, no social media. They're back in the day, and to read something like that, and it just grabbed me. It just wow, what a story! It's just like whether at the time ghosts are true or not. It's just fascinating to believe that this thing happened. And it's just. And in the 70s, it was only 50 years ago, so it's not that long ago, really. And then, then the Harry Price thing, he got involved, and most of us know Harry Price was either a fraud or a genius. It's
no in between. He was one or the other.
Exactly, in between. Yeah, so so it's sort of like it's just going back to the beyond that. The paranormal for me. It's like the Fox sisters, just talking about them. They so-called invented spiritualism, and that was based on a lie and deceit. So it all just fascinates me. The whole paranormal world just fascinates me. How it's some people are diehard believers and believe Harry Price at his word, and some call him one of the biggest frauds in the paranormal world. So it's the heady mix of the uncertainty of the paranormal for me.
Yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, there's no right or wrong.
Exactly, there's no right or wrong. But Harry Price was, in my opinion, I'm not saying it was factually right, but what he did in the 30s and 40s and 50s, has led us to what we do now. Yes. Whether it was wrong or fraudulent or not, his stories and his things that he captured were fascinating. I can imagine people in the day thinking, "Wow," that kind of thing.
Yeah. Because there would have still been people in his era who remembered the whole Victorian sort of Gothic seance-y type thing, and then you also had younger people who had just gone through World War One, and were just about to go through World War Two. So you had that kind of loss mentality as well. So you had all these different kind of emotions and expertise bubbling under the surface.
Yes.
And I I don't know whether I think I don't know whether I feel he was a fraud or a genius. I'm not sure. He was definitely a pioneer, if nothing else.
Yeah, he definitely was a pioneer. So some of this experiments he did, I know that he got asked to write for the Daily Mirror, got paid to write for the Daily Mirror.
Well, it was the Daily Mirror that got him into Borley.
Yes, yeah, it was. And I remember speaking when I researched the Enfield haunting for the magazine a couple of years back. I spoke to one of the reporters who was at Enfield in 1977. And I said to him, why, Ira Price got asked to write for the Mirror in the 40s and 50s, and it was every week or every other week, one of his stories. Why hasn't it continued with other pioneers or ghost hunters? And basically, he said that when the Mirror thought that Price was being fraudulent, they stopped all paranormal stories from being in the paper. So maybe they had evidence that it was fraudulent or not. But as you said, it was a pioneer. It's something that I think is one of the most important people in the paranormal. Yes. Whether it was true or not, what he said and did, that's irrelevant. To be fair,
he kind of brought it away from being behind closed doors.
It did, and that's what I find fascinating about it. It wasn't a showman, it wasn't a Houdini, it wasn't that kind of thing. It wasn't, it was just he just got these great experiments, and I think he was interested in the paranormal for many years. I think there was a TV show last year or 2 years ago, a one-off episode about Harry Price, and he was a conjurer, he was a magician. He could perform tricks, but why not be a paranormal investigator and bring it to the fore, so to speak?
Yeah. I mean, when I think you and I were having this conversation the other day, sort of off air, about when you get all these sort of celebrities becoming ghost hunters. So sort of like, even Rob Lowe and his television show. When you've
with the Sons,
Chad, pardon?
With the Sons, the one with the Sons.
Chad Lindbergh, who played Jesse in Fast and the Furious. Yeah. These are people who are actors but have got an interest in the paranormal and want to look into it. They're not doing it to trivialise it, I don't think. They're not doing it to ridicule it or anything else. They've got a genuine interest, and that's something they want to focus on. I have no problem with that. The fact that wasn't their main career, the fact that they're... the guys from Ghost Brothers, take them for an example. I'm pretty sure both Dalen and Joanne are trained actors.
Yeah.
Now, and Marcus is a hairdresser, is a barber.
He's a barber to the stars,
And people sort of accuse them of showmanship, they accuse them of this, they accuse them of that. Firstly, you talk to those guys, they are the nicest guys you can possibly meet.
Agreed, yeah.
They're lovely, lovely men. The fact that their careers started as actors doesn't mean that they're acting when they do the investigations.
No.
It just means they did something else. I don't know anyone who left school at 18 and says, do you know what? I'm going to be a paranormal investigator. It doesn't happen. So regardless of what your career has been or your talent was, you might have fallen into it for whatever reason. Yours being the Borley Rectory link. Mine is probably, I've always had an interest in it because of things that happened to me from a small child. But this show that I do, that was almost an accident that came about. I didn't contact Parasearch and say, can I have a show? They saw me messing around on Facebook Live when I was at Rougham Airfield, and the former owner of Parasearch Radio was there, and he sort of said to me, would you be interested in doing a show? So, these opportunities happen. It doesn't necessarily mean you're doing it fraudulently. It just... They do.
Well, the UK, Harry Price might have been one of these celebrities back in the day, but we've talked off air a few times, and we said that the UK TV seems obsessed with that TV show about ghosts has to have celebrities.
Yes.
And in America... And
not celebrities who are your Chad Lindberghs, your Rob Lowe's.
Exactly.
Even Katie Price. I know people have laughed about the fact that she's interested in it, but she's never made any bones about the fact she's interested in it.
No.
I've seen her mention it in interviews years ago that she was interested in the paranormal.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't she sort of explore.
Well, they are.
More.
At the end of the day, take away the money and the fame, and they are human beings, and they've got, if they have time for hobbies and interests.
Yeah.
I know Simon Gregson, the guy who won, who's in Coronation Street. He admitted before that he's been in love with the paranormal for many, many years.
Yeah.
And he was excited to be asked on. It's, I think, for me, and whilst we're applauding TV ghost shows, it's the fact that people who get on just for the money and just for the fame, who've probably got no interest in the paranormal whatsoever. It's just appearing on the television,
just show on their CV, on their
exactly.
show reel.
Exactly. But Harry Price to me is one of the. If I had to list most important people in paranormal for me, he'd be high up there. With like Conan Doyle and those kind of people who found the Ghost Club, that kind of thing. So. Whether it was a genius, fraud, or pioneer, we'll probably never find out. To be fair,
no.
What he did and what he did at Borley, I think he took out he lived there for a year, I think, or something like that. And did all these experiments with volunteers and that kind of thing. So it's just fascinating, and it's a shame, that Borley Rectory is no longer there. It's just a massive shame.
We'll get on to what happened to it in a minute, but just going through the sort of the time scale. Well, the first Reverend Bull died at the age of 59, so quite young, in 1892. His son Harry then became the rector.
Yeah.
Now Harry died at the age of 62 of cancer. Now what was quite, this technical term here, freaky, was that they both died in the same room, the Blue Room.
Yes.
Which, from what I read, Harry Price did say was one of the most haunted rooms in the house. But the fact that both of the Bulls, father and son, both died, in effect, a slightly young age, not through old age, in the same room.
Yes, I know.
Which is quite,
people might say, was the Blue Room, was it the bedroom? I can't remember if it was a bedroom or not.
I don't think it was.
No, I don't think it was, because if it was the bedroom, he said, well, he is the master of the house and he died in bed, so what? But you're right.
No, they both collapsed and died in the same room.
So, people could spin on that, people can put spin on that for what they want, but 59, 62, it is relatively young, even back in the day.
So people who had a healthy lifestyle would have had access to a doctor.
Yes.
These were local reverends. They would have got almost whatever they wanted, kind of thing. Then in 1928, the Reverend Guy Smith and his wife came to the rectory. They only lasted a year. Yes,
this is the skull thing. The skull. This is the brown paper thing, isn't it? You're going to mention or not? Or
no? Tell me more.
Oh no. Okay. Well, in the book, it mentioned. I had a look last night because I knew it was coming on, and
you did your homework at the last minute, didn't you? Yeah.
Last minute as usual. And I remember it mentioned that this Reverend Smith. It mentioned his wife was cleaning up and found this skull in the cupboard.
Oh, the skull, yes.
You found that? No?
Yeah, I thought you said school. It's an accent thing.
Sorry, skull. Sorry.
Yes, the skull. Yes, I was going to mention about the skull being found. Yeah.
Spoiled your thunder, I'm sorry.
Blooming accents, language problems. Yes, it was them that supposedly found the skull, and it was identified, I believe, as being a female skull. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's when activity really started. Yeah,
as soon as she found it, not long after, things went mad, apparently.
Yeah. But what's interesting, and according to, I can't remember who it was who actually said they heard a woman's voice saying, "No, Carlos, don't," quite frequently, and they don't know what that applied to. It was only in June 1929 that Harry Price then got asked by the Mirror, as you were saying, to come and do the investigation, and he was apparently very drawn to the cellar, and found part of a jawbone as well. And he's also meant to have found two medals religious medals. One of St Ignatius, I believe it was, if that's the right pronunciation,
and
one of Catherine Labrie, which obviously were French religious icons, figures, whatever the term was. And it was then that the whole nun thing started to really take shape.
Yeah, well, as I say, I think when he arrived, not long after the skull was found, it went, apparently went mad. Stones, vases, spirit messages, yada yada yada.
That was slightly later. That was just after. That was when after the Smiths had left, and a Reverend Foyster and his wife Marianne turned up.
Well, I think I've read somewhere that Smith's wife, she's always suspected Price as being as causing it.
Yes.
Doing it and as faking it basically.
Yeah. At the time, supposedly her reports and her stuff that she gave Price was sort of saying she thought it was supernatural, she thought it was paranormal, she thought it was this. But then about 10 years later, she denied ever having said any of that, said that Price was a fraudster, that he'd made it all up, he'd moved stuff, he'd created it, and that they'd never thought the place was haunted in the first place.
All right, so two different versions of from the same person,
very
basically.
Different versions. And she actually wrote, I can't remember which newspaper I read that she wrote to, but she actually wrote to a newspaper and said, we never said any of this. He's made it all up.
I guess it's like today. It's like, fast forward today, and it's like it's the old subject of faking it. Why would you?
Yeah.
We've talked about the history and mystery of places is amazing. So if there's anything there, then bring it on. But why would you want to do that? Why would you want to throw a stone, or why would you want to smash a vase just for effect? What's it gonna prove? Nothing.
I'm not going to go there.
No,
I was thinking of a comparison, but I'm not going to go there because I don't want to be sued.
Fire to a doll or throw some knives.
I'm not going there. I don't want to be sued. I don't want to get in trouble with my producer either. But I was going to say. If
I say it, will I get sued or you get sued if I say it?
Probably me, because it's my show. So shush. Say what you like on your own Facebook page, Paul, but not on my show. There's no point. What have you got to gain? Exactly. By doing it, unless you're planning on renting the house out as a haunted house, or like the new Hell House of Borley or something.
Yeah, but
why would you want to make stuff up?
If all things go wacky, and then you rent it out to ghost hunters, and nothing happens for the first 3 months, it's just going to get worse, isn't it? The accusations are going to get. I guess in our Price's day in the 1920s and 30s, like I say, there's no social media, there's no cameras, there's nothing, there's no recording things, that kind of thing. So if you want to do it, you can get away with it. You know what I mean? So it was easy to fake it, if that makes sense. I go back to even further to the mediums who spouted ectoplasm from the noses. With cheesecloth, that kind of thing. So, at the time, if I was in the audience watching that, I'd think, blooming heck. That's amazing. But to look at the pictures now, you think, yeah, that's cloth. You know what I mean? But I can imagine back in the 1890s or whatever, that would seriously scare me to bejesus, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. But I can't see what Harry would have gained.
No, I can't see what he would have gained.
Apart from more sales of his books. That's the only thing, really. But yeah, so he started investigating in June of 1929. And it was actually shortly after that the Reverend Lionel Foyster and his wife Marianne and adopted daughter Adelaide came to live there, and that's when the activity really, really started to kick off. And apparently it was Marianne who was targeted.
Yes, because it mentioned something in the book. It mentioned about her being targeted as the main person who was targeted, basically.
But that's quite common with poltergeist activity, isn't it? That it
picks
on a
youngest,
certain person.
The youngest,
and she was meant to be quite a young lady as well. She wasn't the same age as her husband. Her husband was quite a bit older than her. But the interesting thing is, they don't actually think it was... Well, going back slightly, Harry Price had been doing sort of spirit boards and Ouija boards to try and communicate with whoever the spirit was. And originally it was a lady supposedly called Evangeline Westcott who had revealed herself. But when they started doing more digging, it was actually a lady by the name of Marie, and I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Larrey, who, according to reports I read, and I think it was one of his team called Glanville, did some research, and he found Marie Larrey, who was a French nun who'd come to the UK in the 1600s to be at the convent at Bures. And Bures is very, very close to Borley. It's all part of the same sort of area. Yeah. And she supposedly has started to have an affair with one of the men from the Waldegrave family and left the church to marry him. He apparently murdered her and buried her body somewhere in the grounds at Borley. Mm-hmm. And the belief is that the skull and the jawbone that were found could have been hers.
Right.
Now, I did a bit of... I can't find anything to do... I can find the order that she's meant to have belonged to, but I can't see any documentation from the 1600s that there was a Marie Larrey who left the church to marry. But that Henry Waldegrave was the son she was meant to have married. But he was actually married to somebody called Henrietta himself. Now, whether it was a different son, because one of the other theories that I read was that it was actually Henrietta he'd murdered, and she just took on the guise of a nun. That doesn't work, because I looked up Henrietta's life, if you like, and she actually outlived Henry by a good 30 years. So he certainly didn't murder her.
No.
Now, so it's a great story if it's true that this nun fell in love and ended up marrying, one of the heads of the local manor. Mm-hmm. I can't find any kind of logical proof it was possible.
I suppose it's
possible, but I can't find any historical confirmation that it happened. No. I mean, the only link I could find was that Henrietta's, I believe it was Henrietta, was it Henrietta's or Henry's? One of their mothers was actually the illegitimate daughter of the then king. And she ended up becoming a nun after her husband died. And her name was Arabella Churchill.
Right.
I can find, say, a religious link there, because she did become a nun after her partner, the king, died. Mm-hmm. But I can't actually find it's plausible, because the Waldegraves did live in Bures St Mary, which is just up the road. So it's possible. But I can't find the records that Price and Glanville found to validate.
Going back to the poltergeist or whatever phenomena, it's going back to the Enfield haunting and even the one about the Black Monk of Pontefract.
Yeah,
it does seem to target young girls, and those three are probably most three cases that are most well known.
Yes,
but there never seems to be what I want to know is why there's no poltergeist cases now. Do you know? Have they gone? Have they disappeared? Have they thought, oh, I'm bored. We're bored of intimidating young girls. We've had enough. You know what I mean? We're just going to ghost hunt going to spook some locations now. There seems to be no, whether it's because there's no reports of it, but there seems to be no modern poltergeist case. I could be wrong. You may be able to shed some light on that in a future show. But why are poltergeist cases, historical ones, even ones in 1977 and the 60s and this one in the 30s, why is there nothing in the 2000s?
That's a good question, actually.
That
is a very good question. I know I've read reports of them happening in places like South America still.
Yeah, that kind of I've heard of them, but there's no iconic ones that you can. If somebody said to me, name an iconic case in the last 20 years, I can't think of one. Of course, there's the Marianne one, there's the Pontefract one at 30 East Drive, there's the There's one at Enfield, but since then, I don't, there's a Rochdale one, I think, of course, but since then, I can't think of any ones that have been reported or iconic enough to be mentioned on a regular basis.
Or is it because we've just become so almost like blasé about the paranormal that it's not going to make the same impact?
Probably, because like you said, press, the way you found out about things was reading the paper, 40 years, 50, 60 years ago. Now it's every day in the Daily Mirror or the Star online, there's a ghost picture or there's a ghost floating across a cemetery. So maybe it is a blasé, culture of blaséness, that kind of thing. But I just find it fascinating because, you research the Enfield case and the 30 East Drive and this one, and, it's so much targeted, tailored towards the youngest of the family. And yet it seems to have vanished. That side of the paranormal seems to have gone, which is probably a good thing, but, it's just you sometimes long for a case that has something to be, whether it's people say, oh, look, it's rubbish, it's just nothing, we're not going to print it or whatever. But you just wish there'd be a modern, iconic poltergeist case that in 50, 60 years' time, our ancestors, our kids and grandkids can look and say, yeah, that case from 2019 where that kind of thing happened. But are they going to have to refer to these cases again, 60, 70
So when my
years?
eldest son and one of your daughters is doing their paranormal show in 30 years' time.
Yeah, 3D one or whatever, in 3D or
like holographic in front of you and everything. Yeah,
holographic. Yeah.
They can talk about it.
And they took poltergeist. They got to say, "Oh yeah, remember the 1977 case at Enfield?" You know what I mean? So
do you remember that conversation our parents were having?
It's weird how there's no modern case. I could be, somebody might say to you, "Yeah, what about there is a modern case? It's just not publicised as much." But
leave it with me. Leave it with me. I shall speak to those in the know and see if they know. I'll tell you what, when you talk to Kerry Greenaway, there's not much that she isn't aware of. She keeps it quite quiet. She keeps it quite under her hat. But
does she wear a hat, does she? She wears a hat.
No, but metaphorically speaking, she keeps.
Well, no, it's as basically Borley Rectory, Harry Price. It fascinates me 40 years later. It really does, and it always will. And as I've got the book, I've got the book still. It's secure in plastic bubble wrap, and I mean, let the kids read it one day. You know what I mean? So that kind of thing.
Well, what actually they say we were talking about. Stuff that happened to Marianne.
Yeah.
That's all right. No, that's the whole point of the conversation. We were talking about what happened to Marianne, and there was supposedly writing appeared on the wall asking her to help me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was actually her husband Lionel got a hairbrush thrown at his head. They frequently used to have things sort of thrown at them, targeted at them, appearing on the floor. But the person, when they started investigating it, it was actually Henry Bull that was supposedly responsible for it.
Oh, right, the vicar from... Reverend,
Yeah, apparently he was... The accounts I've read, he was unhappy at the fact they'd unearthed this skull. And that's why he was targeting them. It wasn't supposed to have been Marie targeting them. It was meant to be the Reverend Bull.
Oh, right.
And he sort of said, "I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere." Which
interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't the nun that everyone expects it to be who was targeting. It was actually Henry who was being quite abusive but volatile with the family. And one of the writing was on the wall. The writing's on the wall. One of the writing that was found said something along the lines of "Marianne, help me," and something to do with the well tank. About she's in the well tank or she's under the well tank.
Yeah.
Something like that, which was actually to do with the more modern plumbing that the Smiths had installed back in 1928, and apparently some tank up in the loft. There's an awful lot of things that don't make sense, that there doesn't seem to be an answer to
No, I agree. And you say, I remember that in the book, there is a picture of the Marianne writing, Marianne help me. And it's that picture's sort of like stuck with me for many years. You know, it's
very hectic, isn't it? It's very frenetic kind of writing.
Yeah, it is, very, very, very shaky and very frenetic,
Yeah, I mean, supposedly a graphologist came in and said it was Marianne had written it herself, even though she denied it. But then there was one part of it the graphologist couldn't explain because it wasn't written by the same person.
Yeah, I know. So maybe we can look at it now, 80 years later, and say maybe it was Marianne unconsciously doing these things. Do you know what I mean?
Controlled almost.
Yeah, being controlled. You know, it's the beauty of the we spoke before. The beauty of the paranormal is that we just don't know. Whether why would Harry Price make it up? Why would Marianne make it up? I only found out she only died in 1992. I think Marianne did. I would love to have spoken to. Obviously that's only 25 years, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I would have loved to get hold of her and just have a chat, and say, well, what happened? Come on, tell us, And she died in 1992. I couldn't believe that. I thought she'd be long gone, if you know what I mean.
I do know she was quite a bit younger than because Reverend Foyster died quite soon after that. He didn't last very long. After. Yeah. There does definitely seem to be a death if you try to stick it out there. Whether it was the stress of the place, whether it was the stress of the job, I don't know. But there seems to be an awful lot of them who died quite young. Yes, yeah.
It could be coincidence. It could be stress, like you said, stress and that kind of thing. I mean, because imagine at the time, Borley was getting quite a lot of attention, and a lot of people were probably travelling to it and wanting to be let in to do their own investigations, that kind of thing. So.
And I know the residents of Borley even now don't like admitting that's where they live because they don't want people asking questions now. Apparently they are very funny about people who are inquisitive about, sadly, what was the rectory, because in 1939 it burnt down.
Yes.
Supposedly it was I think it was a major or a captain who lived there, knocked over an oil lamp and burnt the whole place down. But even after that, people were reporting things happening. There's a very iconic picture of something literally hovering in the wreckage, the sort of like the ruined doorway.
Yeah.
That I know photography experts have looked at and can't explain it. And bear in mind that would have been pre-digital, so it couldn't have been doctored or photoshopped the way you can Photoshop now
these days. Yeah, have you? I know the fire was caused by the captain, like you said, knocking over an oil lamp in 1939. Have you found anything about? I remember reading something a long time ago about the spirits that came to be contacted and said something that they would set fire to the rectory at a certain time, and that was March 1938. Now I know it's wrong. It's 11 months later when it was set fire, but. Don't you find that weird? If that makes sense.
There is definitely a link. It was something to do with the fact that the skull had been moved.
Yeah.
If the skull wasn't placed back or something along those lines, that the message
I read it a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. That they were going to. I didn't see the actual date, but I did see that they'd said that they were going to set fire to it, and a relatively short time afterwards, a freak accident burnt the whole place down.
That just blows my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So accidents, we know that, but for something. Before the fire, to be said and recorded and documented that there was going to be a fire because we were unhappy with what you've done and that kind of thing. And then in a short space of time, less than a year, a fire caused
completely destroys it.
Completely destroys it.
Yeah.
So.
And then in the late 1940s, it was totally demolished. The ruins were pulled down completely. Which is I find that quite sad, but then again, it was a bit of a. I know from reports I've read, villagers were getting fed up with. Sort of devotees of Harry Price, if you like.
Can you imagine if the foundations were there? This place would be probably one of the most.
It would be like the paranormal equivalent of Stonehenge.
Yeah, if the shell was still there, and this would be it would be iconic to paranormal investigators, ghost hunters. They'd be there most weekends, just with the K2s and the EVPs, that kind of thing.
It would be like the paranormal equivalent of Stonehenge for pagans, or the paranormal equivalent of Lords, not as in the cricket Lords, but Lords as in the religious Lords for religious. But it would be. The village would make money off it because people would need to eat and stay places. But,
of course, yeah.
From what I understand, the village has never embraced its paranormal past, and it can get quite upset if people trespass on the land where the rectory stood. Although the church is still there, and there's
the church is still there,
and there is a public footpath. There's actually a footpath. I think it's called Nun's Walk that goes past it, because it's actually on that the headless coachman has been seen.
Yeah. Well, I also, again, this is years ago. This is 10 years ago. I also read somewhere that the insurance company who investigated the fire caused by the oil lamp, they declared that the fire had been started deliberately. I don't know if you found that or not.
No, I didn't see that.
I've read it somewhere. It's either on a page somewhere, or it's on. I read it in somebody's document about it. It was years ago. I can't remember the exact wording, but I'm sure they said that whichever the insurance company, they declared that the fire caused by the oil lamp had been started deliberately. So that could be. I could be wrong, but
no, it wouldn't surprise me. Well, let's face it, it's a way of getting out of paying the claim. Exactly.
But it's a location that will always be with me. Always stop in my heart and my head because of the book that I read when I was a young man.
And how much impact it made on you.
And basically, it's. I mean, there's many reasons why I do what I do now, but that was the start of it, and it drew me into with the writing on the wall and Harry Price, and then to find out about him, and then moving on to the Ghost Club and Dickens and Conan Doyle and that kind of thing, and you realise that the paranormal is just not a new thing. It's a thing before my time and will be after my time.
No, it's going to outlive us.
Exactly.
The interest in the paranormal. There will be new bits of equipment, sort of devised. There will be new ways of investigating. There will be, I reckon. I don't know whether I think the sort of the science side will come in more with the sensitive side, or if they're going to actually even go further apart than they are now.
Yeah.
That I don't know.
Well, I mean, who knows? I mean, when the magazine started 9-10 years ago, the paranormal was there, but it wasn't as big as it is now. It seems to have imploded with teams and groups and events and locations. The big five were Morecambe Winter Gardens, Gallows of Justice. They were, they were the sort of like the established locations that you went to. But now, pubs, coaching inns, houses, there's locations aplenty in every county, in all every towns and cities in all parts of the UK, and that's a good thing, surely, from a history point of view. It's
got to be. I mean, one of the things I like about it is that a lot of these places now have realised, if we look at it on a purely commercial point of view, it's a good way, easy way to raise some money, because if you've got somewhere like a fort that they can charge you 500 quid to do a commercial investigation at, they only have to have one person there supervising. The money they make to then keep these places open for other people to come and look at, it's just thinking outside of the box.
Of course it is.
And my theory, and I don't know whether you agree with me, anywhere has got the propensity to be haunted.
Of course it has.
It doesn't matter how old it is. It doesn't matter what it was used for. Because of the fact that hauntings can be attached to an object, they can be attached to the very ground that building is on. You could in effect open a 20-year-old house up as a potential haunted house.
Exactly, because like I said, it's about layers, isn't it? Foundation and what's below the house, or what's below the foundations, and what it's been built on, and what was there. If it was near a crossroads or whatever years and years ago.
Exactly. And I think this is a great thing for museums and sort of buildings and things, that they need extra funds to come in to manage them and to maintain them. it's a good way, as long as there's trusted people that they have investigate there, not ones that are going to damage it, like happened at Drakelow last year when that got damaged by some investigators. Pardon?
I heard about that, yes.
I know it's not the only place it's happened to. I know a couple of places that's happened to, that then put an embargo on investigators, but then only let a couple of groups do it that they know they can trust. I understand that completely, because once this stuff is damaged, there ain't no going back. But it is a good way to keep these places open and to keep them maintained and to keep them there for, without getting too much on a soapbox, for future generations. And it is just thinking outside of the box of just having your normal 10 in the morning to 5 o'clock museum opening times.
Exactly. What, afterwards the place is empty and all these things are sort of like stood there and nothing's happening. Yeah. And if they can get income from the public and from us by paying to go there and investigate, it, like you said, it does. It improves their chances of lasting longer, and and maintaining they've got bills to pay and everything, and so it's a good thing. I mean, I know people moan about having to pay to go to them, but I think I can only see the positives of it. To be fair,
I haven't got a problem paying to go to these places because, it's a business at the end of the day, and I want these places to stay and to be there for hundreds of years longer. And if that's the way to do it, hey ho. But a lot of it is the management of these places realising that creating these additional revenue streams isn't a bad thing as long as you do it right.
Exactly, it's not a bad thing, and and from a financial point of view, for the location itself, it's a godsend. Because if it's a hotel or a coaching inn and the rooms are free and rooms aren't being sold, you get 20 people in paying £30. That's £600, and that's pure income for them and justifies it to be happening. And the people who are there ghost hunting, investigating, may pick something up amazing. You never know. So it's just it's the way of the paranormal world these days. It's people shouldn't begrudge anybody. No, want to make a living out of it.
No, I don't think so.
As long as it's done properly and everything. But as I say, I think your grandkids and my grandkids will be talking about this in 40, 50 years' time, Penny. So
blooming hope so. I blooming hope so. I'll come back and haunt them if they don't.
Well, that's the thing, Wouldn't it be great if Harry Price came back and said, "Yep, it was all true." You know what I mean? This is the thing that doesn't annoy me, but I wish. I know when we go stuff, we pick up things and we talk to people like EVP and devices. Just be great, just sit down and say, can somebody get Harry Price to come and talk to us, wherever you are? And then he comes and he says, "Yeah, I made it all up," or "No, it's true." That kind
well,
of
the thing
thing
is, if he came and talked to you and he said, "See, I told you there was an afterlife. I told you there was spirits." Actually, I'm surprised nobody's tried to communicate with him.
I'm surprised. I think I might copyright that and do it.
Well, I was just thinking that. Where did he live? Where did he die? Where's he buried?
Exactly.
Let's get on this, Paul.
Exactly. The Harry Price tours. No, but wasn't it Houdini?
I'll do a guest on your Haunted Live. When you next do,
definitely.
I'll be your guest on Haunted Live, and we'll see if we can communicate with Harry Price.
Live from Harry Price's birthplace, something like that.
Yeah, give me a call. I'll be your guest. I'll be your special guest from Haunted Histories on Haunted Live. Yes. We've got to make this happen.
First, people. Yeah, but no, wasn't it Houdini who said he'd come back and do something or something? When he died, he said, "I'll come back and I'll prove to you that afterlife's real," or something like that. It might have been Doris Stokes. Was it Doris Stokes who said, "I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell you what the afterlife's like," but she never did. So it's just, this is what frustrates me in things that why can't these people who were believers of it, why can't they come back and say, "I'm here, I'm fine, everything's okay." If you ask a question, ask. You know what I mean. So that's what.
Unless it's so bloody lovely where they've gone, they're like, "Sod it, I ain't going back. I might not find my way."
I know. Well, you never know, do you? But you won't know till you're there. Which hopefully is a long time away. But I just find the whole bubble of the paranormal an amazing journey, an amazing adventure.
Yes. So talking Haunted Live and Haunted Magazine, talking those two ventures. When's the next copy of Haunted Magazine out?
Haunted magazine will be out end of May / early June.
And can you give us any sort of tidbits about what's going to be in it?
We're hoping to have the people behind Ghost Stories, the film that's come out based on the play.
Yeah.
Andy Nachman, Paul Whitehouse, Martin Freeman, and Jeremy Dyson in the magazine. There'll be lots of locations being investigated by teams on what happened during their event. What we're trying to keep it we're trying not to have we have a theme, but it's a loose theme. I mean, last issue was gadgets, but it wasn't wall-to-wall gadgets. There was 3 or 4 features on gadgets. We don't want to blitz everybody with gadgets because not everybody believes in gadgets. So we wanted to have a gadget theme, but also have a heavy mix of fun stuff, serious stuff. You know, there's no science in it. There's nothing scientific in it. It's just a good read. So open to have ghost stories in it. There'll be a Haunted Live coming soon, probably if not this month, then early next month. And yeah, so the magazine is free on digital, and we also do a printed version because I still love to feel a magazine when I'm holding it. I still, although it's nice to read it online, I spend all day online working, so I don't want to come home and look at a computer about ghosts. I like to see it and I like to hold it. I smell the gloss on the front cover and just flick through a magazine and put it down and pick it up when I want. So and quite a few people do still want to do that. So
I still mix books and the Kindle. I do both still. Definitely.
I see the Kindle's good to take a holiday.
Yes.
But I still love to basically open a book, turn the page over and close it, and then I know where I am next time. So, there's something about it. But
if you want me in a happy place, it's find me a second-hand bookstore.
Oh, I love them, don't you? I absolutely love them.
I have a friend who she won't buy second-hand books because she doesn't like the thought that they've been touched. For me, if they're older, the better.
Well, not so much. I've also been into charity shops and like Oxfam and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I found a Bible. I think years ago I found an 1893 Bible, only 50p. I mean, I paid £1 because I felt guilty paying 50p. But I opened it up and there was a pressed 4-leaf clover inside the Bible.
Wow.
I'm thinking, well, I'm not going to sell it. I want that for myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was just, it's just amazing what you can find if you look. And it's all historical. It's all history, no matter whether it's famous or not. It's the Bible from 120 years ago. It's had some energies left on it, I'm sure.
Well, talking about that sort of thing, my husband for a while he's a builder and he was doing loft conversions, and he knows that I'm into my history and real history, not sort of I real stuff like you say. It doesn't have to be a famous thing in history. History is history. And he found the meeting notes from the British Legion from 1921 to 1926, just in one of the eaves of this roof. And he brought it home. Unfortunately, some of it had got water damaged and you can't read all of it. I'm still trying to find a museum that wants it because I'd rather donate it somewhere that it's going to get. Nobody wants it.
No, really?
Not even the Legion. No. So I've got it in safekeeping, and every so often I try and decipher some of the writing a bit more. But it was things like in it, like, so we're talking 1921, 1922, so a very short time after the war had finished. And they were loaning one of the widows some money to buy a typewriter so that she could take typing in to fund for herself and her children because her husband had been killed in the trenches. And all these kind of things were going on.
Exactly.
And I was thinking, this is... I was looking at the writing and thinking this writing's 100 years old nearly.
Yeah,
Somebody
exactly.
sat and wrote this nearly 100 years ago. And I find that quite sort of, it may not be exciting to some people.
No.
But
it's still worth keeping, isn't it? It's worth its place in the museum.
Yeah, but nobody wants it. I will keep trying. I will keep trying because I'd rather it was cared for properly and maintained. But I haven't tried Eden yet.
I search on eBay for some time. Just have a quick look on eBay, and the amount of stuff you can get, historical stuff for like pennies and pounds, is unbelievable.
Yeah,
I've picked up some World War II medals in a box for like £10-15, and like 5 medals, and these must have been somebody's medals, and I'm hopefully one day going to research and give them back to the family because they belong with the family of the person who got the medals, in my opinion. Not to be sold.
I agree with you. I agree, and you wonder why they were sold.
Yeah, there must have been. Obviously, they must have. I mean, to be sold for £10-15 now is nothing. It seems nothing, but my granddad was fought in World War II, and he, the legend or the rumour has it that he couldn't get a job after he got back and after being in the army, and he on the fire. He took the medals on the fire and burnt them because he couldn't get a job. I fought for my country and I can't get a job, so he burnt his medals. So, I wonder if people thought, I'm not having these. I can't get a job, I can't do anything, can't do this. I might have chucked medals away, because they mean nothing. So it's awful, isn't it? And I'd like to be able to. I've got the box with the name on and the area. I'd like eventually to research it and give it back to the family or grandson or daughter of the person who actually fought for our country and won these medals for doing that. So that's my plan.
Yeah, it does amaze me what you can pick up. I mean, my dad's a very keen glider pilot, has been for as long as I can remember. And I'd found him a print of one of the original World War II gliders that they used. And then it's always really difficult to buy presents for him. I actually found him a World War II glider cap badge on eBay for like £2.50, which I gave him as a present because he's into history, he's into old aircraft, and it was just a cat. It's a cat badge. And no, the person obviously didn't want it anymore.
No,
and a lot of people don't realise about the glider regiments.
No, they don't.
But and it was always ironic, and I can't remember what the glider was called. I think it was like a horse. Something. It was a German name. The gliders had a German name, which I always found quite funny. But so I got him this glider cat badge from World War II.
It's amazing. It's amazing what we took out because I remember my mum when I had all the Star Wars characters and toys. I had all the action men.
Oh, you didn't have a Millennium Falcon?
I think I did. I really think. Yeah, and I think my mum just chucked them out. Not her fault. I said I didn't want them anymore. But at the time, you don't think there's no space. Yeah, I think I had I'm sure I had a AT-AT and a Millennium Falcon and most of the characters.
You could buy a new car for that.
I know. But with hindsight, it's a wonderful thing, I suppose. But
isn't it?
It's just like you look at things and think, oh no, but it's and I think we should like these medals. I don't want them just to wilt away in my cupboard. It need to be with the people of the person who had them, who won them, and it's just something just great to give them to somebody whose ancestor fought for us, and it's me and you both have history. We know that for a fact from talking off air, but
for a little while,
a little while, yeah, but. It's and it's not. We've talked about also the history of the paranormal, but it's also history in general that we both, and we've got onto locations that are older than some countries. So it's the paranormal should get bigger and bigger. In my opinion, it's going to get massive and get bigger. Yep. I can't see it reaching a brick wall and just going smash. To be fair, I can see it just exploding even more. How and why, I don't know, but I think with a new generation of ghost hunters, I think there are locations out there that aren't discovered yet, aren't investigated. So I think that's where it will grow. It will grow commercially, I think.
So do you have a dream? We'll close the interview out now shortly, Paul, because I know you and I have been, before you even start recording this interview, we were talking for quite a while, just a little. Have you got a dream location that you'd like to go to?
I would love, and it's on my doorstep, so I don't know why I've not been before. I would love to go to Eyam, the plague village.
Oh, the village, yeah.
Oh, it's literally an hour from me.
Right.
I'm thinking, why the heck haven't I been? I would love to go. I know all that's happening is do a tour there, but I would just love to go and just to see, from a history point of view, how these brave people just kept the plague in their area. Nobody was allowed in, nobody was allowed out, and one by one they died, and they put a cross and they're buried in the cemetery. And basically, did they keep the plague from spreading further north? You never know. Probably did, actually. But I'd love to go there. That is something I need to do very soon.
You get to get some fuel in your car and get it on the road.
Yeah, I'll let you know tomorrow how it went. Yeah. Well, no, seriously.
My places involve like a 10-hour flight to get to them, so I've got an excuse.
No, I'm not, I'd love to go to Alcatraz. Yeah, of course I would. But, I'm thinking practically, it's a long flight.
No, dream location. Dream location.
Oh, dream location. Well, no, Eyam's one of them, seriously. Eyam is one of them. Okay. Buckingham Palace, because I hear there's underground tunnels.
Probably. They would have been to some kind of nuclear shelter, probably.
Yeah, tunnels, that kind of thing. I know some of the underground can be done, but on London Underground, I think there's so much there, caves and holes. Even Nottingham's full of caves that haven't been discovered yet. So, so it's things like that. But Alcatraz will definitely be one of them, definitely. And Eyam. I will literally. Next time we speak, I would have gone to Eyam. I'll tell you about it. Okay, definitely,
it's a deal. One of mine's over in Australia, but I'm hoping to do it next year. So,
what's that one?
Arradale, the lunatic asylum.
All right,
Victoria. Yeah. I'm hoping to. I've been given an invite to get out to Australia next year. I've been given the green light by the husband, so I'm hoping to do that next year. Because
obviously, most of us know that Australia was, if you were, especially the crime, you were shipped to Australia, weren't you? So, obviously there's a lot of history linking us to Australia there, and a lot, and we realise how tiny we are as a nation when you visit Australia, I guess, in America. Yes. Yeah. We can travel from Johnny Road to London in 7 hours, and yet in Australia you have to fly from one end to the other, and it takes so many hours. You know what I mean? So
exactly. Yeah. When I talk to sort of Australian and American sort of colleagues or friends on here. And they'll say, it was just a little drive across the state. It was about 5 hours. And I'm like, that took me to one end of the country to another.
Exactly, yeah.
That's the whole of the UK.
Exactly.
So, and that's just one state across for them. So, no, there's a few places in the States I'd really like to do one day. Ashmore Estates, because of my interest in the poor laws and mental asylum type operations and stuff. And I would, but I don't know, Alcatraz, I've been there.
Yeah. Anything happen or anything?
No? Well, actually, yes. Yes, they did, I'll tell you. But I actually, talking to people I know who've visited there, not investigated there, but visited there, they agree with me that the modern prison on the surface isn't that spooky, really.
No.
It's I don't know if you know much about the history, it's the cells that are underground that were the military prison that it was built on, that was originally on the island. That's where the action happens.
Right.
And that's what I thought as well when I went there. No, the weirdest thing that happened to me there was I was sitting where the rec area is on one of those stone steps, and I was kind of leaning on my hand. I was actually looking out across the harbour, thinking, "This ain't that bad. It's quite peaceful." And then sort of thinking to myself, "Well, actually, I suppose if you're incarcerated here, you can hear San Francisco. You can see it from where you are. It would have been quite almost like cruel punishment." Yes. Not knowing that my friend who I was there with had taken a photo of me.
Mm-hmm.
When we developed the photos and we were looking at them, he was like, "I've seen that picture before," and he looked through a guidebook that he had on Alcatraz, and it was a picture of Al Capone.
Really?
Sitting in exactly the same place I'd sat down with exactly the same pose.
Wow.
Unfortunately, I don't have the book. I have the photo somewhere in the house. I don't. The book was his, and he lives in America. But
you're saying something made you sit like that, then?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And unbeknown at the time, it was a pose. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. In exactly the same spot.
Fascinating. So, it really is. It is, and we can talk about history and for hours and hours and hours, because it will never go away. It's always there, history. It's always behind us, So, it's something that you and I have got passions for, as have many other people. And it's been great to recap about Borley, because obviously it's in me, but it's something that I don't talk about regularly because it's just part of my history from 30, 40 years ago. So it's been great to recap and chat about it.
Awesome. Well, thanks ever so much for your time, Paul. I'm sure we'll try and get you back on again as well to talk about somewhere else.
Definitely.
At some point. Maybe even, is it Iam or Iam it's pronounced?
Iam. Yeah, Iam, yeah. That would, honestly, seriously, yeah.
Iam.
I need to go. Because it's literally, it's on my doorstep, and it's disturbing that I've never been. I mean, I think I went with school, but obviously when you're at school, you got to eat a packed lunch and only there for so many hours.
Yeah.
But I'd like to spend a detailed amount of time there, and and I think I've been with the kids, but when you're with the kids, you can't spend hours there because they want to go within half an hour. So
I know.
So I want to just go and soak it all in, and even in the daytime, because obviously it goes 24/7 or whatever. So so it'd be nice to soak it in and just see if I feel anything, and see if I see anything. But even if not that, just read the history about it, and how brave these people were, in the end, and everything. So next time I'll come on, we'll talk about Ian.
That's a deal. I'll get a date in the diary to make sure you visited it before then.
Yeah,
brilliant. I might even come up north and come and visit.
Definitely, it's as I said before, there's so many places out there that untouched yet, and I'd love to go in the UK. And I know you say dream locations, but I'd love to do a UK tour, just visit places that I've never been to. I'd love to go.
Yeah.
To do it. And I know I've done the York ghost hunts, but there's so much more of York that I want to do.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
And that kind of thing. Even London, I've done a few London walks, like Jack the Ripper and stuff, and Richard Jones's tours. But there's so much hidden in London that I want to do, and that kind of thing, like Highgate Cemetery and stuff like that. But yeah, we'll definitely do it in a show, definitely.
Brilliant. Well, thanks ever so much for your time,
My
Paul.
pleasure.
I know we've probably talked our sort of vocal cords off about history and various other things, but it's been a real pleasure, and I look forward to having you back on the show. And Brilliant. I'll make sure Ian's down for you and not Lee.
Definitely, it's Derbyshire, so it might be all right, actually.
Oh, it's cross border,
not
so
yeah,
it's cross the border. Okay. Well, thanks ever so much to Paul Stevenson, the editor of Haunted Magazine and also one of the presenters of Haunted Live. You can go and find the Haunted Magazine, Haunted Live, all those kind of things on Facebook. Please do go and follow them and keep abreast. And like Paul said, that if you want the digital version of Haunted Magazine, it's free, gratis, and for nothing. You don't get much for nothing in this world. But closing out the show now, it's been a pleasure talking to you all. Thanks ever so much for listening. This has been Haunted Histories on Parasearch Radio with yours truly, Penny G. Morgan. Don't forget, all our shows are available after the event for download, to listen to. Go and subscribe to our new YouTube page as well, where you'll see lots of other content that, hey, you don't get on the radio show. And that leaves me to say, good evening, sleep tight, and don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.